Welcome. This video will discuss how you or your witness can use an interpreter if you need one during a remote court hearing on Zoom. Let's get started. How to work with a court interpreter on Zoom. First, let's go over how to request an interpreter. If you have not already requested an interpreter for your hearing, complete the form Request for Spoken Language Interpreter CCDC 041 and submit it to the clerk's office. If possible, file this form at least 30 days before your hearing. Before the day of your remote court hearing, download the Zoom app to the device you will use to participate in the hearing. Plan to use the audio through your computer instead of calling in with your phone. The Zoom interpretation feature is only available when using the audio in the Zoom app. It is not available if you use the dial-in audio. If you are not able to use the computer audio in the Zoom app, you can still work with an interpreter, but the interpretation will be in consecutive mode. That means the interpreter will have to interpret after each speaker, rather than providing simultaneous interpretation. This can make the process longer. Never share a device with another participant, such as your attorney or a witness. Plan to use a headset if possible. Before your hearing date, get familiar with the Zoom interpretation feature. We will discuss this feature later in this video. First, let's go over what to expect when working with an interpreter. Working with the interpreter. When you log into your remote hearing, the interpreter will introduce themselves. They may test the audio and explain the interpretation feature to you. Make sure you can hear them clearly. If you cannot hear the interpreter clearly at any time, tap the chat button to send a message to everyone in the hearing. The interpreter may interpret consecutively or simultaneously. Consecutive interpretation means the interpreter listens to the speaker and then interprets what was said. If they are interpreting consecutively, you should pause after every 2 or 3 sentences to let the interpreter do their work. Speak slowly so the interpreter can accurately interpret your words. Simultaneous interpretation means what you say will be interpreted while you are speaking. This may only be done using the Zoom interpretation feature. If the interpreter gives you instructions, follow them. This may include asking you to make selections in the Zoom interpretation feature or to pause while they interpret. Now let's talk about the Zoom interpretation feature. Zoom interpretation feature. The Zoom interpretation feature allows for simultaneous interpretation. The court will not use this tool at the start of the hearing. When not using the Zoom interpretation feature, the interpreter will interpret consecutively. Remember, that means you should pause after every 2 or 3 sentences. The court may activate the Zoom interpretation feature later in the hearing. Once it is activated, you will see a notice in your toolbar that interpretation is available. The interpreter will give you instructions for using this tool. The Zoom interpretation feature icon will appear in your toolbar. It is represented by a globe and only appears when the court activates this feature. If you are using a mobile device, you may have to tap the More icon, represented by 3 dots. If you tap the globe, you can choose the language channel you wish to use. If you are the person in need of an interpreter, choose the language you speak. If your witness is using an interpreter, have them choose the language they speak. You can also select Mute Original Audio. This will allow you to only hear the interpretation. If you want to hear the English-speaking participants at a lower volume and the interpretation at the same time, select Unmute Original Audio. Remember, even though you are in a different language channel, what you say is not private. Everything you say to the interpreter will be interpreted to the court. The interpreter may tell you to switch to the English language channel when the court needs to speak with you. Tap the globe icon and select the English channel. The interpreter will interpret consecutively while you are in the English channel. If you connect to the audio by dialing in, the interpretation feature will not be available. The interpreter will still be able to interpret consecutively for you. That was a lot of information. Let's review. Make sure to download the Zoom app before the day of your remote court proceeding. Plan to use a headset if possible. When working with an interpreter, make sure to speak clearly and slowly. When the interpreter is interpreting consecutively, stop speaking after every 2 or 3 sentences. Follow your interpreter's instructions. If using the Zoom interpretation feature, find the globe icon. Tap it and select the channel for the language you speak. Next, select Mute Original Audio. If you are instructed to select the English channel instead, follow those instructions. Thanks for watching.